Folks, if I was Eric Swalwell, I would find the darkest crevice nearest to me and just crawl in there and never come out. I mean, this guy, he has zero shame. I'll get into the whole Swalwell story here. He has liability. He's in some legal jeopardy. I'll analyze it here in a moment. Welcome to the program, the What's Right Show, brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law, the only law firm to trust for your injury case. I, Sam Rajovsky, Nevada's favorite recovering Californian, am here behind the What's Right microphone. Good to be here as always. Sam at what'srightshow.com. That's my email. At What's Right Sam on X. Follow me there. I've been posting quite a bit lately, so if you're not on X, you're missing out. What can I tell you? Okay, before I get to Swalwell, though, can I just talk about Lindsey Graham for a moment? Indulge me. Graham has been in the news today. This is weird. I'm just going to come out and say it's weird. TMZ published a photo, actually a few different pictures of Graham, Lindsey Graham, Senator Lindsey Graham from South Carolina, posted pictures of him at Disney World. Now, the problem isn't, okay, that he's at Disney World. The problem for me, even, I mentioned this yesterday. TMZ is going around stalking senators and congressmen in the wake of the funding still being withheld, right? This limited shutdown still in effect. We know because the Democrats want to squeeze ICE, they're withholding funding for all of DHS, which includes TSA. I get this. But TMZ, they're going after Republicans, Democrats, primarily Republicans. Well, the pictures they have of Graham are just humiliating. He's at Disney World, yes, which is fine, okay, whatever. But he's in one of the photos. He's at the Magic Kingdom. He's in the Tangled Land. Okay, this is the Fantasyland part of the park. And he literally is holding a pink bubble wand. You know, one of those toys, you press it and it makes bubbles and it blows them off into the air. I don't know if he was with a kid. I don't see any kids. Nobody said anything about kids. Please tell me that Senator Graham didn't go off and buy himself a pink bubble gum and then walk around, walk around the park with it. Oh, it's just, I have no words. Well, I mean, Matt Walsh, Matt Walsh is so anti-Disney adults. One time, Matt Walsh went on a rant about Disney adults. And I was actually a little bit offended because, well, I don't mind Disney. The kids love it. It's family fun. We go, even though the kids are older, they still love the rides. So we are fans of Disney World. And by the way, one of the great secrets of Disney World, because it's in Florida, a lot of the people that work there are actually quite conservative. You get to know some of the folks there. It's far more tolerable than being in Southern California in Disneyland. So that's one thing I'll say in my defense. But regardless, Lindsey Graham making waves, and it is a little bit of a cheap shot, and I don't like that the media, TMZ, of course, leading the pack, is being so reductive and saying, well, it's all of Congress. It's not all of Congress. It's your side, Democrats, that's shutting all of this down. So anyway, there's that. Tiger Woods. 3 days ago, over the weekend, the whole Tiger Woods story came out. And what did I tell you? I posted it. I responded to to Mike Cernovich on X. So why doesn't a guy like Tiger Woods get a driver? Why doesn't he get his own driver? He's got, what, $1.5 billion? He can afford a driver. And I wrote and I said to everybody, it's because he's a cheater. He likes to wolf around. He can't have a driver. The driver would know everything about him. And sure enough, yesterday was the piece by People Magazine put out a thing about how he wants his privacy. He doesn't want people to know where he's at. I said, well, listen, I had that 3 days ago. Okay. So Swalwell, Eric Swalwell's in the news because it was revealed a day and a half ago that the FBI was reopening its investigation into Fang Fang. You remember this? This is the Chinese spy, allegedly a Chinese spy who was quite close to Congressman Swalwell. The Christine Fang is her name. All right, so that's the lady. She is a Chinese national. And well, here's the thing. Okay, so there's obviously the allegations of an affair. Then she had a job working for him, and then she did quite a bit of fundraising. Now, what I think that this whole story, where I think that this investigation, if there is any, is headed, is at the fundraising component of this whole scandal. Because remember, Eric Swalwell was running for Congress. He met this lady. The lady had had some dealings with other lower level politicians, had then set her sights on Swalwell. The two of them, by all accounts, had dated to some extent, had some sort of a relationship. He's denied it at all times, of course. But she did, and this is a known fact, she did organize a series of fundraisers and acted as a bit of a bundler for him. So there's people who give money to political campaigns, and then there are people who not only give money themselves, but bring others together and solicit contributions from their friends, and then are able to procure a larger pot of money for the candidate. And it was this bundling by a Chinese national that raised eyebrows then, and I think raises eyebrows still now. You can't, if you're running for Congress, knowingly solicit foreign contributions. There's a certain protocol for that, and to publicly available information, that protocol was not followed here. Okay, so Swalwell, for his part, is saying, well, this is all a witch hunt, right? This is all just, I'm being targeted. This was him Monday answering questions, gets asked, all right, Trump administration might be looking at you. The FBI is investigating, the files getting reopened. What say you, Congressman?
This effort to weaponize the FBI against the president's political enemy at a time that we are at war shows a distraction. It shows an obsession with going after the president's political opponents. And it also shows anyone, anywhere who would ever be asked to help their government, why would you do this if it would be perverted in a way to make you look like you did something wrong?
Yes, that's exactly what this is. Swalwell, look, the other thing Swalwell keeps saying is that, this is just a bald-faced lie, and he insists that he never did anything wrong. The problem is, we all remember Eric Swalwell when he was a congressman, by the way, in the midst of all the stuff, very recently in his rearview mirror, and he was going after Trump with all of the fake Russia nonsense. And the whole thing was, this is in January 2019. Okay, Trump is still in office. He's in the midst of his first term. The entire term has been sabotaged by the nonsense cooked up by Hillary Clinton and Obama. And here's Swalwell giving an interview. This is on PBS's Firing Line with Margaret Hoover. Hoover asks questions, pokes at this a little bit. Swalwell is adamant that he has the facts.
At what point do you draw the line and not accuse the President of the United States without any evidence of being an agent of Russia.
Yeah, he's betrayed our country, and I don't say that lightly. I worked as a prosecutor for 7 years, and
Betraying the country, by the way, we want evidence before you say that, but you said an agent of Russia.
Yeah, he works on their behalf. Since he met with Vladimir Putin in Helsinki in July, where he took the interpreter's notes, hasn't told any U.S. official what they discussed. He has taken us out of Syria, which is a top priority of Russia. He sought to diminish or pull out the U.S. from NATO. And he's easing sanctions on Vladimir Putin's friends who are under investigation.
But he did pass sanctions against Russia. He has armed Ukraine. He has killed 200 Russians in Syria. I mean, those aren't the actions of an agent of Russia either.
He signed, I think, begrudgingly sanctions against Russia after Congress and people expressed concern, and he got backed into it. And then I think you have consciousness of guilt by all of these follow-up, cover-up actions. Again, people only tell someone else to lie. People only lie themselves. People only obstruct justice if they're afraid of what the underlying truth would reveal. And
I'm not hearing the evidence that he's an agent of Russia.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear. It's almost hiding in plain sight.
It's almost hiding, cuts off there, almost hiding in plain sight. This guy is a pathological liar, is my point. By 2019, even the mainstream media couldn't, in good conscience, push this idea that Trump was colluding with Putin anymore. It just didn't hold water. But this guy just wouldn't let it go. And what I think is very important is, as this scandal, and I'm glad, by the way, I'm glad Kash Patel and the FBI is looking at it, because in the time that this chitty fang thing was developing, and by the way, there's a lot of stories about this from the moment, a lot of stories coming out now in the moment that reflect on the timeline. And there's a lot of things that are very exculpatory, like, Eric Swalwell, the minute that he was given a defensive briefing, he cut her off and never had any contact with her and all this stuff. And even that is subject to some dispute. But regardless, all of these protestations by this guy, this guy is not does not have high degrees of veracity. And this is a guy, by the way, who now is screaming political retribution. He's saying that this is Trump settling scores, going after his political enemies. But this is a guy who, as recently as September of 2025, said that this is precisely what he would do as a member of the Democratic Party should the Democrats win a majority in office in the midterms. Listen to what Swalwell suggests that he would do if he were together with his friends back in power.
Well, first, we are making it clear that we're going into the majority a year from now. We have every intention to do that, and so we will bring oversight, accountability. We will subpoena the Department of Justice, but also private actors who have done these drug deals with the administration, college campuses, entertainment companies, law firms. And so accountability is coming. And so, one, it's all coming out. Two, I hope that deters people from doing more of these deals.
This guy is dangerous. He's tweeted a number of times, made statements all over social media and in interviews, talking about how there needs to be a presidential commission, crimes commission, to go after everyone who enabled, worked with the Trump administration. This guy is an obstructionist. I mean, imagine for a minute, let me just unpackage what he just said there. Imagine for a minute that you are a company trying to work with this administration, a drug company, trying to work with this administration on prescription RX, Trump RX. And you're working with the Trump people on bringing down the cost of medication for Americans. I don't know about you, that is objectively a good thing. But all of a sudden, you're listening to Democrats like Eric Swalwell make not so veiled threats that when they come to power, they're going to make your life a living hell. And God forbid that they ever get their grubby little hands on the presidency. You can count it done that they will have their Department of Justice run you and your company through the ringer. Now, what does that do to you and your desire to work with Trump and help affect his agenda? What this is, just so we're clear about it, this is Swalwell desperately doing anything he can, and all the Democrats are guilty of this, to obstruct Trump's agenda by scaring people away from working with Trump. Is it going to work? I mean, yeah, to some extent it has to. The scenario I described would be a cautionary moment for any CEO of any company. Certainly any individual that would, be tempted by an offer to work with the administration, to take a position with the administration. And that's what the lawfare against Trump was always from the very beginning. Of course, it was retribution against Trump because they hated Trump and because Trump represents, even to many Republicans, an existential threat to their way of doing business in Washington. But, it was only partly about Trump, and I keep saying this is because it was meant to serve as an example to the next Trump and the Trump that comes after that Trump. For the future, Trump-like private citizens, successful people, people with followings, people with money, people with success, to be reminded in the back of their heads, remember what they did to Donald Trump. Do I want to take a bite of that? Do I want to go against the system? Look at what the system did or almost did to Donald Trump. That's what this is all about. So Swalwell, I could see why he was banging a Chinese spy. I mean, but all intents and purposes, right? The ways of the Communist Party in China is very appealing, is alluring to Democrats. They'd love to control everybody. They'd love to take out their political enemies with accusations of corruption and have them disappeared from public view. They'd love to bring private entrepreneurs like Jack Ma to heel. Remember Jack Ma? He's the wealthiest man in China. He said something a little bit about the Communist Party, about the government, about President Xi. Next thing you know, poof, a guy was gone. And what is it, a year later, a year and a half later, he emerged from his government-ordered sabbatical, pops up, looks like he had seen, look, well, he hadn't been in Narnia, okay? I'll tell you that much. He had been put through the absolute ringer. But the Democrats are they love this. I mean, they're telling you they are enthralled with the way China does business. That's why the Communist Party, Chinese Communist Party, and the Democratic Party of America have always been very comfy with each other, and this goes back certainly at least to the administration of Bill Clinton, because what was it? Johnny Tree, was that his name? Rob, you remember the Clinton scandals? Clinton had a problem with taking Chinese money as well, and it was quid pro quo. He took the Chinese money, and then what happened? All of a sudden, he's signing all sorts of waivers for the Chi-Coms. And they're accessing our tech, our weaponry, and all this stuff. That's people today, Republicans today, even MAGA Trumpists today will bring up, the reign of Bill Clinton and say that was back when Democrats had common sense. Those were the good old, that was great. And the answer, of course, is that by comparison to Eric Swalwell and Gavin Newsom and Kamala Harris and the people that were running the Biden administration, yes, okay? Bill Clinton was a moderate, but he still did terrible things to our country, and that can never be forgot. Sam Rajovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Friends, I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
The Sam and Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
Hi, welcome back. Sam Rajovsky here for Sam and Ash Injury Law. Folks, please listen to what I'm telling you. Don't go at it alone. Don't hire some schmuck lawyer. Don't use ChatGPT to try to write your letters thinking it's magically going to unlock the policy that you deserve. Don't do it. Call Sam and Ash Injury Law right now, okay? It doesn't matter if the accident happened yesterday or a year ago. We can help you, okay? It's never too late. Well, until the statute of limitations passes. But call anyway. Get advice, okay? There's sometimes things that can be done. 800-304-2000. That's the number. Sam and Ash Injury Law, the only firm that will help you. Listen, I spoke to somebody the other day, a professional, a smart person. They tried handling the case on their own. It didn't work out. And they don't listen to the show. They found us another way, and they said, well, Sam, you should tell people to not try doing it alone. I wasted all of this time, and I was still upside down by thousands of dollars. The offer that they made me was a joke. That's why I called you. I said, yeah, well, you ought to listen to the program. You'd hear me saying this time and time again. Anyway, so don't be that person. 800-304-2000. No recovery, no fee, no money up front. You just pay Sam and Ash at the end. And only if there's been a result, right? Easy peasy. 800-304-2000, samandashlaw.com, because you deserve what's right. I don't know where to put this, folks. This story, by the way, Sam Rajovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Greetings and welcome back to the program. The story out of Europe is too good to pass up, and it's becoming a viral internet meme. You know that a Kit Kat delivery truck was stolen, was hijacked? We're short on details, okay? But it was hijacked, and I got to make sure I got the number here right. 12 tons of Kit Kats were taken. Now, I've watched a lot of gangster movies, mafia movies, and followed the news. We know that things like gold and guns and money get hijacked. I have never heard of a chocolate delivery truck get taken, but here we So the internet memes, right? A lot of companies out there, doing funny things with this, like an airline saying, hey, we're really sorry to hear about Kit Kats and Kit Kat, hijack and by the way, in totally unrelated news, the next airplane that we take delivery of will be made entirely of chocolate. And then they use some AI picture of a plane that looks like it's made out of Kit Kats, that kind of thing. Anyway, it's out there. It's funny. What is a lot less funny is in Ontario in Canada. Now, we're fresh off the weekend when I shared with you yesterday on Monday that the Liberal Party there had basically a sort of like an idiot's orgy is what it felt like. A bunch of buffoons up there standing and reciting different woke catechisms. Oh, point of privilege. I've got my gender preference card or whatever it was. Crazy stuff, but there's even worse going on as we speak. And in Ontario, I'm sure you've heard about the MAID program, MAID. this is the assisted suicide law in Canada. It's pretty loose, right? It just requires a couple doctors signing off on it, and you're gone. And people are being dispatched with basically depression. Well, the College of Physicians and Surgeons in the state of Ontario, in Canada, have issued a bulletin, and it says basically, lying on the death certificate, don't put MAID, the euthanasia program, down as the cause of death. Quote, the illness, disease, or disability leading to the request for MAID is to be recorded as the cause of death. The certificate cannot include any reference to MAID or the medications administered. This is absolutely scandalous, but Canada's a failed country, I'm sad to say. So, look, well, thank goodness we're in America. Thank goodness. I have an uncle in Canada, and he emailed my dad and I a couple days ago when the whole liberal conference stuff was coming up, and he really I feel terrible for him. Yeah, he's lived in Canada most of his life. My dad made his way ultimately to America, but my uncle got stuck in Canada. Whew. Anyway, look, there's a video yesterday that started making the rounds again. Now, I've some time ago we played this, but I'm going to play it again. Before I play it, now it's of Trump. I don't want to get anything like that. It's a video of Trump from the 80s. Now, for some of you, you remember the 80s well. For those of you a little bit younger in the audience, it seems like forever ago. I was born in 1980, so I'm a child of the 80s. And of course, Ronaldus Maximus was president 1981 to 1989, followed by George H.W. Bush. So the 80s were a recovery period from the absolute hellscape of Jimmy Carter. Now, one of the things, I bring this up not just to dump on Jimmy Carter, but because that generation of people, and I include in this my parents, and I certainly include in this Donald Trump, were scarred by what Iran did to us, okay, when they stormed our embassy and held our citizens hostage. Scarred. That period was imprinted in the minds of every American that had a little bit of backbone left. I understand the Carter apologists, made their excuses, but the rest of us were disgusted. Now, there was a story, and I didn't get to it yesterday, over the weekend from the Daily Mail, and it's one of the many pieces out there now about how Stephen Miller, there are whisperings in the Trump administration. Stephen Miller is a puppet master. Pulling the strings, manipulating Trump, basically circumventing Trump's orders, running the show like the punk kid that he is. And this is a story. Now, citing number of sources, I don't know who's saying any of this. The minute that you're effective in the Trump administration, the whisper campaigns begin, and I'm convinced most of the time these journalists make stuff up, or they talk to just one or two people who are way on the outside of things and who are disgruntled. And the reporter knows this, but now they have a source and they can write the story that they always wanted to write. The purpose of this, of course, is to undermine Trump and to undermine the administration. It happened at scale in Trump's first term, okay? And it resulted in a lot of good people being kicked out or leaving, and then getting replaced by miserable sort of deep state Republicans, rhinos, and then that was already that was the end. Now, when I'm just going to come out and say it, okay? when you write an article as a journalist in America, and I think the person who wrote this is Philip Nieto, who's a U.S. political reporter for the Daily Mail. When you say, in light of this being largely about the Iran war, and you've got the Israel component, and you've got Stephen Miller, who is Jewish, when you call him this puppet master, okay, what are you really saying, right? One, it's a little bit of a Jewish trope, an anti-Semitic trope, right? The Jews control everything, woo, right? You're also implying that Trump is a buffoon incapable of holding his own, which you and I know is not the case. And finally, it's a bit of cognitive dissonance, in my opinion, if I may say so, to say first that Trump is some sort of authoritarian, Nazi-like fascist leader. And then on the other hand, to go, oh, but he's getting manipulated by the Jews. That's right. Trump is a Nazi. He's a bigot. He's basically this Hitlerian statist. But he also is being manipulated by Benjamin Netanyahu and Stephen Miller. The abject lunacy of this is wild, and it should be immediately apparent that this is all a joke. But, and I've always said this about leftists, the left doesn't have to worry about logical continuity, right? What they say today, in other words, doesn't connect to what they said last week. It doesn't have to. Today's today. Everything exists in a vacuum. They don't want to learn about history. They don't want to learn about what communism was all about. No, we don't revisit the past. No, I've had leftists tell me this. So that was 1919. That was the 20s. That was the 50s. Things are different now. Dismissing as if weren't relevant, but it's part of a larger problem. We as conservatives like to look at things factually and look at history, and we like to link up things that are happening today to the past because the past can oftentimes be instructive. So this is what is the problem with the current state of criticism of Donald Trump. Now, I'm going to come back to this video. There's a Barbara Walters interview, and this, I've mentioned this in the past. Barbara Walters sat down with Trump. This is a 2020 episode in 1987. Now, again, I'm going to remind you of a couple things. Number one, in 1987, the Iran hostage crisis was not that long ago, right? And it was seared in everybody's memory. Number one. Number two, okay. Listen to Trump talk about what should happen in Iran. And mind you, remember yesterday on this program, I mentioned to you that, taking these countries for their oil is very America first. Okay, so I don't want to hear from the America first people. They're like, we are America first. We are America first. We are MAGA. We are behind the president, but just not when it has to do with any of this foreign engagement stuff. No, we don't want that. And I'm telling you, Trump would lose me if he starts to go out and want to nation build and do democracy a la George W. Bush. But doing oil grabs like he did in Venezuela, 2 thumbs up. Helps us, helps our economy, helps shore up the dollar, helps our energy dominance. Hurts China? Count me in. So listen to Trump back in 1987, and I'll add one more thing, right? I reminded you of the Iran hostage crisis, right? Under Carter, absolute disaster. I'm reminding you of what Trump's, America first agenda really is all about. It's not isolationist, but it's what is in America's best interest. And then finally, all of these, forget the left, they're retards, but on our side, people just are, Trump got manipulated by Benjamin Netanyahu to do X, Y, and Z, right? That is a narrative very much popular with the Tucker and Megyn Kelly crowd, all right? 1987, here is the president.
Here because I'm personally tired of seeing this great country of ours being ripped off.
But as far as Trump is concerned, our allies are only part of the problem. The real culprit is Iran.
Why couldn't we go in and take over some of their oil, which is along the sea?
How would you do that? Would you send in the Marines? Would you take a chance in a war?
Let them have Iran. You take their oil. That's what
How?
How?
I mean, do we want a war? What do you mean we
in,
take their oil?
You go in. You're
How
gonna have
do
a
we
war,
go
Barbara.
in?
You're going to have a war by being weak.
Okay, how do we go in? What do we do?
Excuse me.
Yeah?
You're going to have a war, and it's going to start in the Middle East.
What if the Soviet Union said, you do this to Iran, we're going to come in?
I don't believe they'd do it. The next time Iran attacks this country, go in and grab one of their big oil installations, and I mean grab it and keep it, and get back your losses, because this country has lost plenty because of Iran.
I mean, wow. Can you believe this? Benjamin Netanyahu went back to 1980. He already started on Trump then. The Jews were in Trump's ear all the way back in the 80s, manipulating him in their wily ways. Do you realize how dumb Tucker Carlson sounds? Do you realize, folks, how stupid Joe Kent is? These people are not worth our time. I'm not here to tell. I don't know. I don't, like I said before, I don't have the intel. I don't pretend to be all-knowing, a savant-like person. I have good gut instincts, and I'm often right. As I say, always right, rarely wrong. But, I cannot ascribe the decision-making that Trump is making today to some sort of, view it in some sort of conspiratorial way, that there's a cabal of Israelis / Jews that are manipulating him. And like the Daily Mail piece writes, is puppet master Stephen Miller manipulating Trump behind the scenes. When Trump's been talking like this for years. Now, here's what I can tell you. Again, I don't have intel, but I'm reading stuff on the internet, which is always dangerous. I'm putting it through the SAM filter, okay? Don't snark at me, Robbie. Actually, Robbie, I don't know what you think of this. Producer Robbie looking at me, wondering where I'm going to go. I think it's clear that there is some kind of a force of Marines and perhaps other military personnel from other branches that are being readied for a grand invasion. And I don't, it's not my preferred thing. I mean, obviously this is something that I would have wanted handled from the air, and I would have wanted to see resolved without the step. Now, are they going for Karg Island? Are they going for another oil depot? Is this all a radical, psych intended to put maximum pressure on the Iranians to fear this this action? I don't know. I can't answer that. It could be any of those things. But I think the indicators exist that some kind of an invasion is being readied for whatever purpose, if it's actually going to happen or not. And by the way, I'm using the same indicators that suggested in the lead up to action in Iran. I told you for a number of weeks, it could be this day, it could be this day. Well, there's no moon tomorrow, so it could be a good night to go in. And then ultimately it happened, and it happened at a time of Trump's choosing, obviously, no doubt, based on what his commanders suggested and what the intel gave information to. But this is where we're at with this, and so these are dangerous and precarious times. And the fact is that again, it's a fight for energy. Now, keep repeating this, right? Our three existential threats to Western civilization as we know it is China, are the Islamists, number two, and number three are the liberals that live among us, people out there who are obsessing over the 380 pronouns, genders that are possible, and that want to take all of our wealth, the people that are planning a communist revolution here in America. And they are doing it. They are doing it. And they're getting some of their own elected into high office. Just have a look at New York City and Zohran Mamdani. So these are serious things. These are big and weighty issues that are going on. And of course, we'll analyze it here on the program as we always do. Sam at what'srightshow.com, at What's Right Sam on X. Also Instagram, by the way. And I do have a video there from Disney World, by the way, that I took when we were there a week ago for spring break. So you can enjoy that of my son. All right, folks, it's a wrap. What's Right Show brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law. Grab the podcast, What's Right Show, wherever you get your podcast, so you don't have to wait